So tonight I'm going to talk about public outreach and archaeology and some lessons that I've learned from being with Nevadans for Cultural Preservation. And again, Nevadans for Cultural Preservation is a nonprofit, and I was one of the founding members that pulled this thing together in 2013. So we've been around 10 years now, and our main mission is really preservation through education, because we believe that we cannot expect people to care for things they know nothing about, follow laws they've never heard of, or protect things they cannot identify. And so today, what I'm going to talk about is really all of these opportunities that we have to do public outreach and some questions we need to ask ourselves so that we can do a good job with it. So tonight's opportunity for me is this monthly speaker series. And why are we holding this speaker series? It's really to engage the public in better understanding and respecting local archaeology. And our goal for this evening is to share the projects that we've been working on and our methods for developing quality outreach. And the way I'm going to do it tonight is just me sitting here working through this PowerPoint with you all this evening. Okay, so archaeologists have different types of information that we can share with the public. And these are just a few examples. So there's, the importance of the field of archaeology, new technology and techniques, a new find, and then there's also some activism there, which can apply to all of those things. And so what I want to do is talk about each one of these opportunities and then some reasons why they may occur. So you have an opportunity to share the importance of and the science used in the field of archaeology. Like, why would that come up? Why would that be relevant? And so some examples I come up with through my history as a public archaeologist going to UNLV is funding being cut. A lot of times we want to share the importance of this field because it's going to go away. Are there challenges being made to how archaeology fits into the humanities or the sciences, like bigger debates? And more locally, are we preparing the community for an archaeological project? Do they need to kind of know what it is before they're going to warm up to the idea that something's happening? And depending on your organization or entity, are you talking about it just to get new members or students? So there's always these whys. This is kind of like the politics behind everything. And it's really important to understand that so that you can gear your outreach to deal with whatever that is. So for example, there's new techniques or technology. Ground penetrating radar has really changed the game when it comes to archaeology, not having to do as much excavation, which is, damaging in itself. So say we're going to talk about ground penetrating radar, why might we be talking about that? And so some ideas I came up with, maybe this new technology is challenging past findings. Maybe you're convincing the community to support a project that this technology could be used. Maybe the community can participate. So for example, there's a lot of citizen science projects out there where we ask the community to go out and use like iNaturalist and these other apps and things like that to help us gather data from a larger area. Or maybe you invented something or came up with a new technique and you're trying to make a name for yourself and share that information out there. And this is kind of in my opinion, one of the more fun things that we usually bring to the public, and that's to share new research findings. What is it we've uncovered? What new thing have we learned? And one of the more recent exciting finds was in Utah, where some fossilized human footprints were found that date to around 12,000 years ago. So, that made it in, like mainstream news. And why is it that we want to share things like that with the public? And you know, does it affect a community? Does it change our perception of the big picture? And that's where this find may change our perception of the bigger picture. You know, and is there something we want to do with this information? Right. And then there's activism. And I don't want to think of activism as like kind of a four-letter word of people fighting, as it says, trials in the trenches. It can be a lot more subtle than that. Activism to me is just appealing to somebody to maybe care for something or change their behavior. It doesn't have to be, you know, bashing people over the head with information. But activism can appear in any of those other reasons for sharing information. But, you know, a lot of times it's to change a community's behavior, or maybe an opinion, but those kind of go hand in hand, or you need support for an issue or a project. And that's kind of where Nevadans for Cultural Preservation comes in. So why was it founded? It's really, I was working with the site stewardship program with some other individuals, and we kept seeing small amounts of damage, like tic-tac-toe on some rocks, or you know, somebody driving over something that they weren't aware of, or people making collectors piles. And so it's these smaller things that people don't think anything of that were creating these larger impacts over time. So I was seeing all this damage that was reported through that program and realized, well, hey, we need to get out there and let people know this is happening. And so we can change the community's behavior. And so the nonprofit kind of created that opportunity, that first piece of the puzzle, through being a 501c3 nonprofit, having to go through all those legalities, you know, having a tagline and a motto, and just really kind of organizing to have this mission to move forward. And don't read all this, that it's up here just to show, you know, that we had our main goal, our tagline, but really that our techniques match that we are providing educational services and assistance with protecting these places through projects and outreach and print and social media. And it was really kind of picking up pieces that like the stewardship program at the time couldn't do, and other organizations weren't really paying attention to. So we had talked to other entities and been like, okay, you handle rock art recording. Okay, you handle, you know, different aspects of things. Where can we fit and bridge some gaps? So that's really kind of how we got started. And so like I talked about tonight, I have the opportunity to talk to you all and why and the goals and techniques. We kind of do that with every project. And that wasn't something I sat down and decided I need to write all these out. But through the years, it's kind of like, these are the things we need to match up with each other. And so if we just look at the bold things here, this is kind of the key things that we're doing. We're trying to reduce site damage by education, help with cleaning up and protecting sites, engage a community in monitoring, help cleaning and keeping out trespassers, you know, getting resources in front of teachers, getting resources recorded for their preservation of the future, and then keeping people involved and educated. So they don't all come in order, but the main thing is that we have these opportunities, and then all that other stuff matches our mission of preservation through education. And if you don't stay focused on your core mission, you can sign up for 1 million projects and not have the impact that you're looking for, including the public outreach impact, just telling people about stuff. If you don't have a clear idea of what you're doing, that gets lost in translation. So I'm going to go through a couple of, you know, those things that I had on that in that chart, one at a time, to kind of talk about what's going on, how we ended up there, and hopefully where we're going. So land user outreach, this was the very, very beginning. As soon as we formed the nonprofit, we knew we had to get out in front of those individuals that are going and visiting these mainly remote sites and reduce their damage. So we hooked up with off-road clubs and hiking groups and that kind of thing to get in front of those people. We also held booths at different events and held those presentations for clubs. So we kind of had a canned presentation for the like the off-road community, like Jeeper clubs and that kind of thing. But really, that's our core. And then we modify our information based on our audience. So we really got to cater it to them, have one activity or message. Our first outreach event with the stewardship program, I had like 6 different kids activities that were all running at the same time. And it was a little much to manage. So sometimes just channeling everybody into one activity that has one clear message that they can leave with one clear request. So for example, in the photo on the bottom left here, that's me at Earth Day. So I had a booth that had to do with archaeologists studying trash and how in the past people used to, reuse and recycle things. And then now today we're throwing it all away and that kind of thing. Or up on the right, I went to Hump and Bump, which is kind of a funny name, but it's all these off-road groups get together and they go out and they ride trails in Logandale. Well, that's a little different audience than kids coming through planting seeds and learning about the environment. So I had speed dating, so I could yell at people, hey, do you want a speed date? And they'd come over and we'd date cans. And I would talk about how tin cans, and now aluminum cans with different tops are becoming historic. So we want to pick up our trash, but also leave all the historic stuff behind. So just really trying to grab their attention and match it for the audience. And whenever we're dealing with the public, you want to meet them where they're at. If you want to change the community's behavior, you got to ask them to participate in preservation and bring it to where they're located. If I just hold a talk like tonight, nobody from these communities that I'm trying to reach are at my talk tonight. You all are here tonight because you already care about these things. You want to learn a little bit more, but getting those people that are the ones that are scratching tic-tac-toe on the rocks or making collector piles, they're not already coming to archaeology talks and engaging in this stuff. You have to go where they're located, make it relevant to them, and build partnerships with them. All right, a little more, academic stuff here. Again, as I was going through, it's kind of interesting that I was already kind of doing this, but there's Monroe's motivated sequence. So first, your audience has to be interested in what you're doing. Got to get their attention. Then why should they care? Then they know what to do. They're like, yeah, if I do that, this is going to work out great. And then they can actually do that action that you're asking them for. This is the activism piece. So when I do the club presentations, they're like, sweet, somebody's going to come talk about archaeology. And while I'm there, I'm going to talk about their value. And then I'm going to show them, oh my gosh, this is what's been happening to all of these things. So they're concerned. They're like, what? And then I show them, what we can do to get ahead of this damage, how they can help us by, educating others and reporting damage. And so they get to see that action piece that they can actually accomplish, which is reporting damage through the stewardship program. While I'm there, we're passing out artifacts, we're showing pictures, keeping them engaged. This is our resources. This is important to everybody. And then again, that one takeaway action, I could just have them sign a pledge or take this card and report damage, or I'd like you to, do X, Y, or Z when you're out, something that's really achievable for them. Now that's engaging with people face to face. And now there's public outreach and education that has to do with signage. So it's static. So I've been with the Nevada Off-Road Association. They have a partnership. I go and I sit in their meetings, and I've been able to help them with some signage at a cemetery. And I had to help with, the legalities and that kind of stuff. So we did some 106, which is getting clearance for some signs and fencing, and then also the content of the signs. So here is a picture of the cemetery, and you can see the little yellow flowers. Well, these graves are not well marked. And so what was happening is the turnaround and where people were driving up and through the cemetery kept widening to the point where people were driving on graves and not knowing it. So they don't want to do that, but they're doing it on accident. So we went and surveyed an area where we could put up a buck and rail fence. That's the kind that just sits on the ground, so we're not disturbing the graves. And then I'm going to stick some signage to that fence, right? And so when thinking about signage, again, that's your opportunity, the why, the where, but it's got to be relevant, your typical visitor, and stay positive. We want to make sure we're not pointing our finger and being like, don't do this, don't do that. And this is an example of a sign that the nonprofit did out at Basin and Range National Monument a while ago. All right, so of course, you're at a cemetery. What do you want to know? You want to know who's in the cemetery, who's buried there, what's going on. And what's really cool is there were a lot of unmarked graves, but somebody had done research through newspapers to find out who would likely be buried there. Like, that's some cool stuff. So for example, there were a couple kids that died of diphtheria, and there were some small children's graves there. Oh, maybe those are the kids. It gets people thinking and looking while they're visiting, like, oh, wow, I wonder what happened to these folks. And then there was articles, of course, about the people who had actual headstones in the area. All right, and then they're like, why is this cemetery here? Just a basic overview of the timeline of mining in that area and a description of, how the heck does a stamp mill work? Remember, we don't want to assume that people know everything once they've gotten there. So we want to have them walk away learning something new, and also why it's important. All right, and then the people that are going there are going in 4x4 vehicles or in little razors and things like that. So we need to have some maps, let them know, this is where you're at. Why is there a fence at the cemetery? People are going to come up to that cemetery and they're going to be mad. They're going to be like, what? Why can't I just drive up there anymore? So we want to explain that in the signage. So hopefully they won't be shooting stuff or pulling the fence down. And then work with partners like Tread Lightly and other recognizable, pro OHV, pro 4x4 folks. So that they see this is for them, not against them. And then be cute about asking them for help, foot traffic is welcome. Take pictures, leave footprints, keep your pets close. We put a little pig in there. Katie Hoffman is our graphic designer and president of the nonprofit. She made all these graphics for this, and there's that reporting damage. So it's not just telling them what to do, but in the text, it explains why, right? Why do I have to keep my pets close? Because human remains are close to the surface, right? And those dogs or pigs could dig it up, and we don't want that to happen. Or why do we want to stop driving in the area? Just give them the reasons, and keep it interesting. So we've gotten a grant with the OHV community through the OHV registration dollars go into a big pot of money, and then that money goes back out usually for projects on the ground like staging areas and tracks and that kind of thing. But we really pushed. We had to go twice because I had to educate the board that was reviewing this, the commissioners, and then come back and talk a little more. But that we really want to actively engage these individuals at helping us kind of be like mini site stewards to places that they already go. So I'm not telling them where anything is located. And so the opportunity I kind of created, right? But it came from the cemetery project. So the OHV community was like, we want to help, we want to do cleanups, we want to do this, we want to do that, but they don't have all the information. So when they go do the cleanup, they can remove the historic stuff, or other things happen. So through conversations with these organizers of these larger groups, it was like, okay, we need to get out and do more club education, but with the side-by-side groups. We need to get some signage out to the places that they recreate the most, and then engage them with us. So why not? So again, it's more marketing. You got to have a tagline, you got to have, your logos and all this kind of stuff. And so now we've got this project that we're currently working on to really find out where people are going, not to shut it down because that's a fear, but to put signage in places where it's going to be most viewed, and also put these volunteer people that are going out there already to work and say, hey, this is where your community is visiting all the time. You know where this is. I don't have to tell you where this is. I need you to report if it looks good or if it looks bad, so we can, engage you all and show that you're helping take care of these places. So you got to know your audience. That language is super huge. I need to know that they're looking for, respected access is open access. There was a fear between the BLM of, hey, if I talk to them, or if I talk to the off-road community, I'm going to be telling them where everything's at. And there was a fear from the off-road community saying, you're going to rat us out and tell them everywhere we're going, and they're going to shut it down. So you really have to know the concerns and stuff, and then provide the education and a language to meet them where they're at, to, gain that trust and create that relationship, and find out, what do they actually want? Our projects need to meet the needs, not just of the resources, but of the people that we're engaging with. What's the need at Earth Day? Earth Day, the need is reduce, reuse, recycle, that kind of thing. What's the need for the off-road community? Well, they're angry that things are getting shut down. Well, why are they getting shut down? How can we help and still do preservation? So that's me and my helmet. I got a couple helmets, and I am so excited that I get paid to go ride with these individuals and talk to them about preservation and develop training programs and that kind of thing. So I get bounced around a bunch and freeze my butt off, but it's totally worth it to really, again, meet them where they're at. All right, and then part of this education is to help the Nevada Site Stewardship Program. That's one thing that I've learned, is you can't take on the world as a small nonprofit. If you have an idea of what you want to do and to accomplish that, you're either going to have to pay a fleet of employees, or you're going to have to use the resources that are already available. And so what we're working with the Site Stewardship Program is to direct people to the online reporting form. This is for citizen stewards or anybody out that goes to a site in Nevada and sees damage at a cultural site. They can report it. And so I made these plastic, kind of like business cards or gift card type without any kind of barcode on it. And I'm handing those out. And then people can go on to that. And then the Site Stewardship Program manages those reports. I'm not in a position to manage those reports. I mean, I could, but that's a lot of work. Why not partner up and have them manage that? And they have the database where they can go through and say, we've had X number of reports from the OHV community, or, keep working that angle. So we work really closely with the Site Stewardship Program because we can do things that they cannot do, and vice versa. Right, and then another opportunity came along with the Howard Hughes Corporation. They were going to be doing some graffiti removal out at a place called Little Red Rock, which is on the outskirts of Las Vegas. And it didn't go according to plan. They learned that it's a lot harder to remove 20-year-old baked on graffiti than they thought. But then they needed maybe some additional assistance. So we created a partnership with Howard Hughes to remove graffiti, create some signage, and also created a website for them. And this is a way, again, for us to be kind of like the public outreach face for Little Red Rock, but not be Howard Hughes doing that. So here's a picture of the issues that they have out there. This is attracted this area back when it was on the outskirts of town. Great place to go party. So people would come up, they would dump their garbage, burn their cars, spray paint, obviously. and, you know, burn pallets and all that gross junk that people did. But there are petroglyphs underneath that. And there are things that I don't even think the vandals knew about. And so this kept attracting more. Then development started coming up into the area, and people weren't visiting it to damage and party as much, but there were still people coming up. So occasional vandalism, and it just adds up over time. So this is the most heavily impacted area out at Little Red Rock. All right, so here's Lois. She's the regional coordinator for the site stewardship program, and she helps the nonprofit out quite a bit. And she and I were out there with some other volunteers and individuals scrubbing some graffiti off of the rocks. And while we were out there, we realized, like, I don't think people know what they're spray painting over. I don't think they can see it. The petroglyphs there are not really clear in certain areas. They just know it's fun to party and add stuff. So we talked about making a website. So Howard Hughes went ahead and worked with us, and we created the Little Red Rock website. So now if you go on Google Earth or Google and you just Little Red Rock, Nevada, you'll see on Google Maps that it pops up. So we are now the attached website to that location. So we can inform people before they even think of heading out about the area. So our 3 key things, because we want to keep it simple, right? We want to meet people where they're at, keep it simple, keep it relevant. History and the importance of the area, that's number 1. Number 2, that there's continuing remediation efforts, because when you go out and you see a bunch of damage, you think people don't care. And so why should I care? 3, this is private property, and so you're actually trespassing, and we want them to also know about the other laws. But we don't want to, like, again, if they're thinking of going out there, maybe they won't, but if they're already out there, we have signs with QR codes that take them to this website. So we don't want to be jerks. Again, we don't want to be like, you're trespassing, you're going to go to jail. Instead, we want to say, like, this is private property, but please help us take care of it, and that kind of thing. So I get to the next slide here. And boundaries. There was nothing that I could find before we built this website, and I got the boundary markers and stuff that really kind of explained where Howard Hughes started and where the BLM started. And so there's a lot of misinformation about what was or was not open for visitation. So we have this on there, and you can see these major roads coming up, and that's because they're putting water retention infrastructure in for the developments down below. And then what's going on in the future? You want to answer people's questions, just like I did with the signage at the cemetery. People are going to be like, what the heck is going on? There's a lot of talk about, oh, they're going to develop all the way right up to the Red Rocks. I can see they got bulldozers and things like that. You know, you want to be able to say, hey, you know what, chill out. Yes, they're up there, but they're doing water infrastructure, and they're going to revegetate everything again. And as private property, you know, that kind of stuff, they're allowed to do certain activities, you know, and ask them to report damage. Again, we're back to the stewardship type program, you know, report new damage. That actually goes to my email because it's a small area and I can manage it, but, you know, just asking for people's help. And the other thing I figured out is that law enforcement is going out and monitoring it like they would a residential area. And they have this cute little UTV, they go out, and so they don't know what they're looking at either. So opportunity, I was like, okay, we're gonna train the law enforcement officers what to look for. So they need to understand, what do certain artifacts look like? They need to understand the type, like, how can you tell if somebody's been looting? You know, buckets, shovels, screens, and a pile of rocks. Well, they're just, you know, what's going on? And then, you know, just getting them out to the sites so that they know where the damage areas happen to be. And then letting them see that they may not even be able to recognize if somebody like spray paints over petroglyphs because they're so difficult to see in certain areas, that they need to treat every instance of graffiti or vandalism as though it was done at a cultural site, because those areas are important. And it will take somebody like myself or another archaeologist or a specialist to go out and be able to do a good damage assessment to find out what's going on. So public outreach, you know, we have different types of public. And so to me, it's pretty much everybody, but maybe not so much other specialists in the field that you're in. So again, catering to each individual. And then we created these new carcinite post markers, and a way for people to see, you know, hey, this isn't BLM land, because their previous markers look just like those other ones with the brown carcinites, and put right up front, you know, Native American cultural area, bam, you can't, oh, I didn't see anything, I didn't know this was important. You know, and then there's the website, and then the things, the things to report, which is pretty much telling them not to do it, but in an asking way. And, you know, just try and mix it up a little bit, get people's attention, and meet that public where they're at. Okay. So speaking of meeting people where they're at, Clark County School District has to teach Nevada history, and they do it in 4th grade. It may sometimes roll over into 5th a little bit. And through talking with teachers, we realized that there's no quality standardized resources. You know, we've educated off-roaders, but really everybody knows if you get to the kids, you get to their parents, and you actually get to a lot of people. Now, we had talked in the beginning, oh, we should go to classrooms. I know NVFCP volunteers should volunteer to go to the classroom and take a presentation. That doesn't work. There are so many classrooms in Clark County or in Nevada. Then we have to deal with all types of specialized insurance and background checks and fingerprinting. And, you know, we just can't manage that. And it's just not going to happen. So we went ahead and created a curriculum for the teachers. So she's our secretary, Laura Treymani. She is a master teacher. She got her undergraduate degree in anthropology, archaeology, and has gone into teaching and has been on our nonprofit board for quite some time. And so she went ahead with help from others to write out a curriculum that meets Clark County School District standards. And really, the main draw for this is quality, accurate information that is not going to reinforce negative stereotypes and portrayals of Indigenous people. I think that is really the key. You know, we created, you know, this map up here. I've created this from the past, but just to, you know, highlight the diversity, move away from caricatures to using pictures of actual people. So this is also to address some of the concerns that I've heard just over the years through different tribal members about, we're still here, we're not just in the past, you know, some other things like that. So we put together a curriculum. And the key thing is meeting your people. Why? How are they going to use this? So if I were a teacher and somebody's like, oh, look, I got all these great resources for you to use, the teacher would have to sit down, look at the standards, match up the resource, and see how they're going to write that in their lesson plan to fit their recording and, you know, what they have to do. So we did that for them. So this is just, you can download it from Teachers Pay Teachers or from our website. It's all in black and white as far as anything that has to print, so it's cheap. It's a PDF, so they can open it. It's got QR codes and also links, and it's got all the standards marked. And the PowerPoints, go with each one of these are short. They're mostly visuals. Underneath, it gives the teachers all the text and stuff for them to share with the students. So it's supposed to be, as easy as possible, but we hope to get maybe a humanities grant or some other funding in the future so that we can advertise this to the teachers. And my vision is to get some different tribal members to do some video, and it doesn't have to be secrets or anything like that, just to get faces and voices and people represented in the curriculum. They don't need to see my face, they don't need to hear my voice, they need to hear it from other individuals. So I think hopefully that will be coming in the future. All right, historic land art is what we thought was going to be a small project. Our president, Katie Hoffman, is an artist, and she took a land art class at UNLV before she graduated. And there are a number of land art sites in Southern Nevada that have become 50 years old or older. So they are eligible to be managed differently and be recorded and put into our statewide system. So Katie came up with this project, and it's called Modern Desert Markings, an homage to Las Vegas area land art. And we actually ended up getting funding through the Nevada Arts Council and Nevada Humanities and private donations and the Barrick Museum of Art. And it's turned into this giant project, which is pretty exciting. In this photo here, it's hard, you can kind of see, it looks like a baseball diamond. This is one of the land art pieces called Las Vegas piece, and it is actually what you see. It was like a blade that was 4 feet wide, it went by twice and a foot deep, and they just dug trenches, but they're like on north, south, east, west axes, and it was really kind of neat to see. But again, more visible from above. All right, so part of the project is we needed to go and record the current condition of each one of these land art pieces. And what's neat is each one of the pieces are ephemeral, right? So we're not saying, oh, we need to keep it the way it looks today or how it was created. We're more there to create a snapshot of what it looks like today, so that in the future, if we're going to put a power line through there or anything else, that people know that this event happened here, that this landscape was created. And so we're putting that up into the archaeological database. All right, so we got these different artists. We went out, we did field work, we got all the information about where everything's located. And then those artists are creating their own pieces. We have 10 of them that are going to be inspired by those artworks. That's to bring, their take on land use. Should land art be a thing? Is, it happened in the past? Was it, all different opinions and different angles on it. And so those individuals making the art, and then we are taking that to the Marjorie Barrick Museum in Las Vegas. And they gave us pretty much half of their space. So we've got what you can see in this photo, not exactly that much space, but we have a ton of space. And we did a call for artists, and we got 70 applicants from around the world who wanted to be part of this exhibition. And they had to narrow it down to 10. So it, like I said, it blew up much bigger. But our audience in this case is going to be the art community. So instead of doing public outreach at a booth at downtown Summerlin, our public outreach is going to be through this exhibition at this free gallery at UNLV in Southern Nevada. And so that is, just a different technique and tool to get to those individuals that are, most passionate about this. So then there's the usual, right? We need to have some member and supporter outreach and keep people involved and educated. This is one of those things through the speaker series and our YouTube clips, socials, and publications. This is, working with our community here locally and our supporters. And so, again, we're trying to get in these area experts, people who have something to say about archaeology. And if you know anybody or if you want to speak or present, let me know. And then we've been doing pints or pastries for preservation. The pints started because we had beer donations and used it as a fundraiser to, they donated the whole keg. Chiba Hut would, disperse the keg and maintain the finances. And then that way we were able to generate some funds. That was our first and second one. And now we just do it more of a social, and they try and give us like happy hour prices and just a way for us all to meet in a casual atmosphere to talk about things. I started pastries for preservation because I'm not a drinker and I have a gluten allergy. So Chiba Hut is not the best place for me to eat or drink. And so this is hopefully going to continue to be something where we have like coffee and snacks and then go on a hike or visit something. So again, another social activity, but no drinking in the daytime, out somewhere new. And really, I'm getting close to wrapping up, but I want to just emphasize with all public outreach, it's really important to do some networking. The Sierra Nevada Sustainable Recreation Partnership, which is a mouthful on the top right there, that's how I ended up being involved in the signage and fencing clearance project up at Pine Grove in like north central Nevada. And I sit on those and I sit on this partnership. They have projects all over that area, and we share information and I educate them and they educate me. We have a Valley of Fire Archaeological Field School coming up that we're involved in, just helping with the educating students on how to engage with the public. And that's in partnership with UNLV, CSN, state parks, and others. I do want to mention that Sunray, the Southern Nevada Rock Art Association, they have dissolved, but they provided a large donation to our nonprofit to continue research, preservation, conservation, and education related to rock art in Southern Nevada. And I do got to give a little plug to Steve Didrow, who is the main host of the Art Box podcast. Again, as you can see, we're like overlapping into the OHV community, the arts community, and his Art Box podcast that they have there does that as well. And there's an episode with me. It's their 10th episode. I get to talk about how I used to live in a van down by the river. I had van life before it was cool. Katie Hoffman talks about her background and her art, but also about the modern desert markings and archaeology. And then we were able to do 10 minutes out at a place called Mystery Ranch down by Searchlight. Anybody who's following the Aviquame, that is in that area of Spirit Mountain. And we talked about cultural resources and sites when we did a podcast there. So just ways you can, if you just Google the Art Box podcast, or if you're a podcast person, you'll find it. And really, if you're doing public education about the dangers of going into historic mines or the dangers of drugs or whatever it is, public outreach without a clear goal can be dangerous. I think that's really important. It's not just ineffective, but it can be dangerous. If you're doing a mock archaeological dig and you just let people go to town digging up artifacts and that kind of thing, people may walk away with the wrong idea of what you're trying to promote. They may come away with the idea of treasure hunting, and that kind of thing. Or say, oh yeah, it'll be great. We'll have kids do rock painting, and, they may walk away thinking it's okay to leave their mark. We want to focus on the context so that people understand that context is important, that the scientific method is something that we follow, that we don't go out and just excavate things, especially with ground penetrating radar, right? We're trying to avoid full excavation so things can be preserved, you know, and, you know, appreciate the skills and things that it took to make these cultural resources that are non-renewable. So a couple quick things. Me as a public outreach person and working with different folks, I have to be careful not to share too much. And I think everybody kind of has to. There's ARPA, the Archaeological Resources Protection Act, that makes sure that I'm not supposed to do that and I can get in big trouble. But the way I get around that is I let other people tell me where things are. If I'm not sharing that location information, and then I can talk to them about it if they're letting me know what they already know. And I provide generalized information. Oh my gosh, there's a number of rock writing sites out at Gold Butte. What a great area. Or, you know, man, pine nuts were such an important food source, and they used to collect them up in the Sheep Range, you know, or at Mount Charleston. So just big general things, give people enough information that they didn't already have without putting anything at risk. And it's okay to tell people no. If they ask you specific questions, it's okay to tell them, I can't tell you about that, or I can't discuss that, or and then just tell them why. Like, I'm not allowed to talk about that because I have access to privileged information. And if I do that for you, you know, that information may get shared and I'm responsible. I could go to jail, you know, I could lose my business or whatever it may be. So again, look at those opportunities, ask yourself why they exist, know your audience so that you can cater to their interests, always have a clear action that's easy to accomplish. And, you know, archaeology is not just for archaeologists. You know, we study the history of humankind, and we should have fun enjoying sharing that with others. All right, so that's the PowerPoint portion of this presentation. I want to thank you all for listening to me ramble through all of those things. You know, it's stuff I do every day, so I feel, you know, I get kind of annoyed with myself for talking about it all the time, but I hope it was interesting for you and new information, and you got a better idea of what we're doing as a nonprofit and why we're doing that.